Now that we have the stretch character constructed and tested with the jump, now it's time to move forward. Now we're going to do a full animation assignment. So what we're going to do is a walk assignment. So we're going to go through a number of stages and we'll have a follow along. What I'm showing here is the end result, but we'll build this and do it step by step. We'll follow along and apply the principles of animation and really study, how does the human form walk, and work out the timing and such. So if I play this forward, I'll just play this in real time. Might be a little laggy, but not too bad. And again, this is all done within 140 frames, almost a little less. But the idea here is to really bring the character alive. So all the bits and pieces that we've hinged really make the character look believable. So if I come back and we'll just scrub through this a little bit, what we're going to work with first is anticipation. So that's the character. He's going to move forward, but what we need to do, what anticipation's all about, he's going to lean back. So he's going to go back before going forward. Now the challenge here is throughout all of this walk is going to be getting the feet to look like they're solid on the ground. So there's going to be some tricks how we can keep track of that, and we're going to do a lot of adjusting to get those feet to look on solid ground. It's probably one of the biggest challenges with this 2D method using 3ds Max. So again, we're going to anticipate, and again we can exaggerate that action. We can lean them right back. We can even lean back even more here. Another thing to keep the character alive, this is something I'll work on when we come to the file where we're going to start from scratch on here. If you look at the eyes, the character blinks. So that's something that will take a very simple method how we're going to make the character blink. If you haven't already done so, and check that out with the Peep character from last semester, but we'll review that and make sure we know how to make that happen. And then the character starts walking. So one of the crucial things here when a character's walking, and this part here where we're kind of at the legs are spread in the walk, is that the arm in the foreground moves with the leg in the background, and vice versa. The arm behind moves in unison with the leg in front. So we want to make sure that's happening, because if you study walking or you go walk down the hall at home and see what your arms are doing in conjunction with your leg, and we want to simulate that. So here's the leg in the upright, and then down at that spread. Okay, and then coming to a stop, and we want to come to a gradual stop and settle the character down and come to that stop. So there's follow through. That's another principle of animation, is follow through. So we don't want the characters just to come to a stop. We want them to move and react and look at natural physics of how we move. Okay, so lots of other little things happening that we'll go over. Overlapping action. If we look at the nose, talked about before how we hinge that nose, and it is bouncing about, and not arbitrarily. It is bouncing because of the reaction of what's happening with the body. And the same with the hair. We'll see that the hair up here is going up and down. But what happens is when the body comes down, the hair goes up, and when the body goes up, the hair goes down, and vice versa. So it's always trying to keep up. Okay. So the other thing and the last thing that I'll go over before we get into building it, and that is the pelvis here. That pelvis is the center of the character. That's what moves the character up and down, or moving him forward so that the whole character moves. What we need to be doing is having a nice rhythm of that pelvis coming down when the legs are apart, and going up when is at the maximum height when that leg is straight up and down and moving across. So that's the other thing we want to look at and make sure we're doing. So what we can do, let me see if I can get this to work. I'm going to select the pelvis here that I have. I am going to go up here to, I'm going to go to this motion, and look at trajectories. And if we can see that, let me zoom in. There is a trajectory line, and that's showing the path of the pelvis. So we're going up, and you can see that going up and down. And making that line visible, that we're going to make sure that it's a nice, smooth up and down motion and help us keep track of things. So mine's saying trajectory here. I've got an older version. The newer one, I think it's a motion path. Same thing, you'll find it in the same location up here under animation. But again, this is an overview. Here you can see those keys of how I've been moving the pelvis as well. And you know, each component has its own set of keys and what we're doing with it. But again, this is an overview, and we're going to get started fresh, starting this action from square one, and follow along step by step. Now, before we start doing the walk from scratch with our stretch character, I want to set up something first. Before we get them moving, I want to set up these eye blinks that we saw in the completed version. So selecting the eye here, we can see that there's a little box that shows up. Hopefully you see that. I'm just going to rotate that so it's straight up and down, pretty much. And we're back. Yeah, my computer's having some glitchy problems, which you may have too if you haven't got the latest and greatest. Mine's getting a little tired, I see. So what I want to do with the eye selected is go to the FFD 3 times 3 times 3. Let's select that. And let me zoom in. And what you'll see is you'll get a box of vertices here that we can work with. So I want to get into here. Let me just check. There we go. So what I want to do to be able to work with these vertices, you got to swipe over, and we're going to crunch them down there. But before we do that, let me come back. I am going to turn on our auto key, and I'm going to move our cursor to 10. So we're going to animate this when we use this 3x3. So again, I swiped over, grabbed those, and you'll know that it's working when you can squish those, the shape that we have. I'm going to swipe the lower 3 and move that up. Okay. So what you'll get when we animate, you'll get that eye opening and closing. You don't have to close it all the way. I mean, you can close it as far as you want, really. What I'm going to do is swipe over this key here, do a shift and drag and bring it over to 20, and then we can see that it opens and closes. So we'll come back and look at this, and we can move this around on our timeline to have him blink wherever we want him to. So now when he does blink, you can see that we have the big pupil of the eye here. So we want to do the same thing to it. So I am going to, now see, you can't do anything else because we're in the FFD. So we've got to select that again. And then that gets us out of that mode to be able to select those vertices. So we're going to go do the same for the pupil here. And I'm going to add that same, you know, you can use the 3 times 3. Maybe I'm going to try FFD 2 times 2. Makes it a little easier. I'm going to zoom in, and again, when this is highlighted blue, it's not active. When you select and that blue goes away, now we can swipe over and bring that down, swipe over underneath, and bring that up. So there we go. So we can see now we've animated that too. And when that goes back, I want the pupil to come back, so I am going to swipe over this key, highlight it, shift, and drag a copy of that over here. So now when we take a look at that, we've got a quick little blink. We can close that even more, but for a blink, this works. So again, you can play with that, see what's effective. And again, something to keep in mind when you're designing your character. And if we do want to push it even further, is we can come in and we can, let's see, I'm just going to bring that down. I'm going to squish that even more, leave it at that. I'm going to get out of this, and now I'm going to select the eye again here, and I'm going to click on the 3x3, and again I'm going to swipe over these keys, these vertices, and bring that even tighter. So there we go. And then remember to click out so that you can manipulate other objects. There we go. So that comes out pretty quickly. All right. So I do have some refresh issues here on my computer, but there we're back. So let me take a look. There. So you can see that's a very slow eye blink. I'm going to leave it like that right now, so that I'm going to do the next eye and do the exact same thing, and then we'll play with the keys. So I've skipped ahead and rigged the other eye exactly like I did the first one. So now when I scroll, we can see them both opening and closing at the same time. And again, it's a little glitchy. I don't know why. Hopefully you can see it. Let me just wait for it, see it come back. So what I want to do is select the pupil here, hit Control, select the other pupil, the other eye, and then the other eye. So you have all four elements here. And with them all selected, we want to make sure that our keys, I'm going to swipe over and highlight all of them. And I'm going to shift them down to about frame 40. So now when I play, it blinks a little later on. So we can move these same keys anywhere on the timeline, so we can have the character blink whenever it works out for us. And again, those blinks keep the character very much alive. So what I want to do next is that's a very slow eye blink. So what I'm going to do, let me just shift these down so that the close is at 40. So an eye blink is usually 5 to 6 frames. So it's usually pretty quick, but it's still perceptible. And it's something we expect when we see other people, that they do blink on occasion. It's odd when a person doesn't blink. So we want to make sure our characters are believable, because they're going to do something we expect from a person to do. So what I'm going to do is now deselect these, and I'm going to select this 30. And again, I'm swiping over because I want to select all of the 4 elements keys. So I swipe over it to make sure I'm taking all 4 of them, because we select them all at the same time. They're all here. So I'm going to bring this one up to about here, and then I'm going to swipe over here and bring that back to about here. So now when I play this and we take a look, if it's going to come back, let me see, we'll play it again. There we go. So you can see that's a lot more realistic. And you don't really see how funny the eye looks when we've squished it down. It just looks more natural. So we'll take advantage of those blinks and put them along our walk just to give them a more natural look. Okay. Now we're ready to start animating. So like we started before with the jump, I'm going to do the same thing. Is that the most difficult part of the whole walking a character using this technique is getting the feet to look like they're solid on the ground. So I'm going to go into our create and take a look at, you know what, I'm going to, let me just see what I'm going to go. Rectangle. I'm going to do a rectangle. Go from here to here. There. I am going to right click on that and do a editable poly and select it, and I'm going to give it a color that we can see. And let me go into our material editor. I'm going to try this bright yellow here. There we go. So I want to make it from the toe to the heel, so we kind of get an idea of where that foot should stay planted. The next, I want one for the other foot too, so I am going to do a shift and drag and bring that up and put it back here so that we know where that toe had started. Not that it's really going to matter because we're going to move on with that, but I will be using this to move forward. Now that I've done all that, I have my auto key on and I've done all this at frame 72. So look at that. They all start animating away here on me. So all I have to do, there's a key here, is bring that to 0, and there's no animation there. And let me just check with this one here. Yeah, I didn't move it, so there's no animation. Okay, so now with those in place, what I can do is I can start taking a look at what I want to move on the character to get them animated, get them start walking. So just like the jump, we have anticipation, one of the 12 principles of animation. So what we found was we wanted to jump the character up, we had to go down first. So now with walking, we want them to move forward. We're going to have them move back first in anticipation of moving forward. It's kind of like building up energy. So what I want to do, and we can play with this and we can always go back and we can exaggerate and have some fun with it. So I do want to animate this time. So I'm going to bring the timeline to 20 and then start moving elements here. So I want to make sure I am in the select and rotate tool. And one of the things I'm going to work on first is I'm going to bring the body back. I wish my refresh was a little quicker on that. So we're moving him back. What I don't want to do is move the pelvis. So in that anticipation of moving that character back to then move forward, I can move a number of elements here. I'll move this back. I am going to select this arm and bring it back. So when I do that, now he looks a little imbalanced, but what's going to put him back in balance is I'm going to rotate this leg up. And let's see, he comes back, yeah. So, and I'm going to bend this leg here a bit. There we go. And, you know, so I move here's what's important why we have a pelvis. That way we could move the upper body back and still keep this leg in place. So that works out perfectly. And now we've got him in that back position. So let's just take a look. Let me go forward here and see what happens when he moves. Yeah, unfortunately, this isn't refreshing very well. It's funny, it works fine when I'm just using Max, but when I'm recording, it decides it needs more energy to refresh. Let me see if I can get this to... There we go. And you can see this is a bit slow in action. So what we can do, because I've done this action at 20, I can swipe over the whole character so I can see the keys that are involved, because here's the blink, which we can play with later. But here's we got the same keys of that body action moving back. So what I can do to quicken that up, I'm going to swipe over, because again, we got the whole character selected. So we swipe over to make sure we're selecting all of the keys for all those elements. And I'm going to bring them to about frame, what do we got here? About 11 or 12. That's all fine. We can adjust as we go and play with the timing. So, you can see that went quite quick. So again, we need a number of frames here at the beginning so that we can see the character and then move the character. So here, I'm going to move that maybe around 26, 27 from moving that. There, so that's not too bad. That's a good position. Looks good. Here, I'm going to move these eye blinks down here so we can use them later where we'd want them to be. So one of the things we want to do is when we have a key pose, so we've gone from this pose to this one, and we played with the timing. So he's done it, you know, not too slow, not too quick. We've seen both. Now we're finding something to make sure it registers. We want to keep them kind of in this pose for a little bit. because we want to favor key poses so they read well. We don't want the action to move from one to the other really quickly so it's all a blur and we haven't registered anything. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to select this, shift, and we're going to take it anywhere between 5 and 20 frames. And when you do, he freezes. So if we start animating here, we'll have a lag. So that he's not totally frozen in place and doesn't move at all, I am going to select some elements and just push that action even more. I'm going to select the head and move that even more. So now, if I can play this, if it stays together. Hang on, so I move the head at this point separate. So here's the thing to watch out for. It starts moving all the way here at 1, which might work out, might be a happy accident, maybe not what I really wanted. So I can grab that key and move it up for when I want that head to move. And then the same was happening with the body. So whatever I moved, that kind of moved from here. Actually, that worked out quite well because I had established keys before. So it's going to move from the last key, which is this one. And now everything else is still, but this one just moves back a little further. And what I might even do is take this leg and just move that a little bit higher as well. So whatever we can do to keep the character looking alive. So let's see what happens. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good. All right. So now what we can do is what's the next move? So, we've got that action kind of going to frame close to 35. What I'm going to do, let's say 45. Now we're going to do some real action here. I'm going to move the character forward, and that's where this marker is really going to help us out. So what we can do too, I want to move this marker, but I don't want to animate it. So I'm going to turn the auto key off. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to move it forward to where I anticipate. Oh, I select both. Let me see. Let me undo. Why am I selecting both of them? Okay. Skipped forward a little bit. I had trouble with my markers. So rather than try and figure out why they were combined, I just deleted them and recreated them so they're separate pieces. So sorry I didn't have a solution for you, but that is a solution. If things aren't working, just delete, start again, or go back and try again. I mean, that's part of the process. So to carry on what I was doing, really what I wanted to do was grab this marker and move it forward where I'd like that foot to be planted on the next major key. So I might move it up a little higher. So again, to give some depth, to have one in the foreground, like lower looking in the foreground, and one further up and in the background helps that illusion. So now what I want to do, now that I have these moving, and look at that, I left my auto key on with this one selected, and I am going to since I don't need this key, no, I'm gonna eliminate. Oh boy. Okay. Again, time to go back. There's that key. I am going to delete it. So it is in place. So that foot comes up, and now that I have that action move backwards. So at 45, I am going to start moving the character forward and getting it to work on here. So I move the marker here, and how do I know where to move it? I don't. So I may still be moving it more because I want to get to the stride of the character for the next pose. So that's the next set of keys that I want to manipulate everything here to get to this next step. And you know what? I might even want to move that a little further here anyhow in anticipation. So auto key. Now what I want to do is I'm going to start moving some elements. Like I knew I moved that body back. so I'm going to move it upright. The big thing is going to be, and this is the trickiest part, is I've selected the pelvis. I'm going to move the pelvis. Right now, it's right above this foot. What I need to do is move it between this marker and this marker. So I'm going to move it this way. So I'm kind of halfway in between for that stride. Maybe a little bit back. And again, by judgment here. And first time I've moved the pelvis, look, it's gone all the way back to 0, the key. So I don't want that shifting all that way. So what I want to do is where I finished that action before, I'm going to drag this key back to where that action, where he came up. I want that foot to be right solid when it's back. And then, so there's, let me just see. I can double check by where this key is. Yep, so that's perfect. So the key here, when I started shifting that forward, happens right at that point. So that's all working according to plan. So that, here we go. So 35 is where things froze and started moving back. So let me go back. So it's not perfect. I want to grab that pelvis and I want this key to move back to here. So now it all lines up with the other action. Okay. So not only am I moving it forward, because in this pose here, my refresh is not working out very well for me, is it? In this position here is now when he goes to the next position of the stride, the pelvis here should come down as well. And we saw that in at the beginning of the video. So I'm just going to bring that down slightly. Okay, so there we go. So it's here, comes back, and then comes down. And we can adjust how far down that is. So what we want to do now is, let's get this foot rotating. Get that straight here. I'm going to get the bottom leg up. This way. Now the trick's going to be getting that toe back at the beginning of this marker here. Okay. So I'm just checking to see how all that's working. So again, I've selected the leg here, but again, what I want to do is select the pelvis. And I'm sorry about the annoyance of my computer not refreshing. I'll have to get an upgrade here soon so we don't have this issue. Again, it's funny, only when I'm recording. When I'm using just 3ds Max and not recording, I'm not having this refresh issue. Technical issues, always a lot of fun. So we know that 35 is where we start that motion here. So when I move any of the elements on this leg, I know 35 is where I want to make sure the action is starting from. For example, if I move this part of the leg here, up here, that we have this at 0. So I want to bring this back here. So let's just take a look. So hang on here. There we go. Move this leg here. Then I want to move this up somewhat here. And again, bringing this over to 35 where we were. Then I'm going to grab the ankle and move that so that hopefully that foot is getting pretty close. You see it's not, so it's going to be shifting around. Now let me see, I just want to make sure I'm bringing that key up to 35 so that all that action starts at the same point. And let's just see if I can walk this. There, so it's not too bad, but you can see the foot is shifting and not maintaining that spot. So I just want to play with things so that that does line up. Then I'll work on the rest of the limbs and things as well. So one of the things I want to do that I'm here, what seems to be working is that foot planting. So I'm going to turn my auto key off, and I'm just going to adjust this marker so that it lands on the heel. So now when that foot comes down, I've got a good idea where it's supposed to be. It looks like my marker should be a little longer, so I'm going to go to my select. Okay, is this not working? Oh, there it is. Sorry, wasn't paying attention. A little longer here so that it is the length of the foot. Okay, there we go. Go back to here, and I can move that just a little bit further up so that it is holding there. Yeah, even my mouse is delayed. Like, yeah, I've got issues here with my computer. There we go. So again, let's take a look. So yes, what we want to work on is this foot. We want that toe to maintain this position. So we'll have to do some adjustments and things to get that to work out for us so that it's just right. Okay, so here we go. So that movement was happening to 45. So I am going to try and figure how I can get that foot closer. So what I'm going to try and do is maybe rotate this so it's not going quite as far. Let's see. That's better. Let me just rotate that just a touch more. There we go. Let's give this a go here. So that's pretty good. That's maintaining. You can see at one point the toe just drops slightly, and we can compensate for that with the pelvis here. When we select the pelvis, if we're here, we can see the toe is connected, then it goes down below, and then it comes upright. So maybe what I need to do is halfway through that move, I gotta bring that pelvis just up a touch. And let's just play and see what happens there. Look at that. So I had to put a key in the pelvis just to adjust it, and that's not too bad. Maybe have a little bit of a blip there, but it's looking pretty solid on here, which is great. Okay, so back at 45. What I need to do now is move the rest of the limbs to make this work. So one of the things we talked about before I was pointing out is that if this leg, the further back one, is forward, this arm should be forward as well. So I am going to swing this arm with this selected. I am going to swing it forward like so. And I am going to grab this arm in the background and swing it further back to the other one. And let's just play this. Hopefully you could see what's happening. There we go. So not too bad. Great. So we got the first stride. We got things kind of happening here. I think I'll keep this as a part 1. And then I'll do a second video of taking him, doing 3 steps, and then coming to a stop. And we've got lots of other things we can tweak, adding overlapping action and such. All right, so part 1, part 2 coming up.